What's going on, everybody? This is the Burn Down. Today's episode, we got a hot episode. So I hope you punched your ticket, take a seat, because it's the hot ticket joining the Burn Down. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down. I'm Justin. We got Eric up there, and we have two very special guests for you guys. The hot ticket is joining the Burn Down on this episode. Welcome.
Yeah.
Hot ticket, what's going on?
Yeah, so I got to say, so you said I look like Mrs. Doubtfire, but the whole intention around this was I wanted to wear the powdered wig because I think we're all here to make history today.
Yeah.
So this is a moment in time that should be cherished and should be considered by all to be a huge event in the entire. I mean, my thought is screw coronavirus. This is a much bigger deal than that.
I feel like
Amen, brother.
I feel like my dad jokes are rubbing off on you a bit.
Yeah, they are.
Hey, there are nothing wrong with dad jokes, okay? Absolutely nothing wrong. Everybody loves a good dad joke.
Oh yeah, for
Agreed.
Sure.
So you guys already got it going. What are you guys smoking? It looks like you got some iced coffee.
Yeah, yeah. My wife saved me with this today. This is like number 3. I'm smoking the Fratello, the Texan, because I wanted to smoke something so obnoxious. Look how bad. I mean, I don't know if you can see how the camera, like how obnoxiously large that is.
Yeah, how big is
Yeah,
that?
that's
I think it's like an 8x60 maybe. It's
Oh, good Lord.
It's a girth.
That's a,
yeah.
Yeah, I went with the sophisticated cigar, Davidoff, Nicaragua.
Oh.
Oh.
Mixing some class now.
Yeah. So yeah,
So we
I
are
just
smoking.
want
where
to
is
treat
it? Here we
myself.
I'm smoking a Flor de las Antillas
Oh, that's a great
yeah.
cigar.
by my
And I
father.
did-
This is one of my go-to sticks that I enjoy every
Then I
time.
did some major Instagram creeping on your page, and I wanted to find a cigar that you guys reviewed. So I went back all the way December 3rd, 2018.
Jesus. Oh,
The Gran Oferta.
Nice.
The offer, baby, the major offer, the grand offer.
That's a sleeper in my opinion in terms of the My Father lineup. Just
I remember when this first came out, like last year, like January 2019, I bought it. And it's been sitting in my humidor ever since. And I was like, man, I'm trying to find a cigar that they reviewed that I can go on. I was like, nah. I was like, oh, this is the one. I got to use this one. So I creeped in. Here it is.
well, I hope you're not disappointed by it because if you are, sorry.
Then this interview will take a turn in the wrong
Well,
direction.
as you said, it'll go down in history. It will be
Takes
history.
away all of our credibility.
You'll just see everybody log off all at one time.
Yeah, it was a waste of time.
So wait a second,
Well,
hold
I've
on.
smoked that
Is
one
that
pretty good.
is the full mustache new?
Oh, this is new and improved, baby.
That's what I thought. Because so I've been known to grow a mean mustache, and unfortunately I let my beard come in a little bit, but usually it like comes in nice and thick. But I let the rest grow in. But that's nice, man.
Thanks. It's nice and dark. I've been called Ron Jeremy.
was nice.
Freddie Mercury from Queen.
Freddie Mercury. Yeah.
All right, so I kind of see the Freddie
I see
Mercury
the
thing.
Freddie, yeah, for sure.
Hopefully, sans HIV.
Free.
See, I saw
Coronavirus.
the Freddie Mercury, but I couldn't give him that compliment. I had to go the opposite, so I called him Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, he's like it's like
yeah.
Ron Jeremy probably when he was like 27 years old.
But he needs
When he
the
was
ball-
when he
needs
was
the
first
real-
getting into the industry.
When he was still young and vibrant and hadn't worn himself out
If
yet.
you just had the real greasy, wavy black hair that sits at the shoulders, then you'd be the Ron Jeremy for sure.
Hey, man, the way I look at it, they both got some type of ass. A lot of it. So
Oh,
That's true. That's true.
That's a good
There's a
point.
bright side to everything, right?
Excellent point.
the reason I have it, I couldn't grow a beard. I'm just lighting up right now. I couldn't grow a beard. Like it gets really thick around here, and then like it's kind of like light around here. And then one day my mom was just like, "Yeah, your father could never grow a beard, really. So most chances are that you're not." And I was on a Zoom with my girlfriend and her family, and her cousin had a stash I was like, I can make that stash better. I'll be right back. And I went to the bathroom, shaved, and I came back. And I was like, what do you guys think? And they're like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, that's your day.
Hey, my thing is, so I can't grow a real good beard either, especially on the sides. I have that whole Mark Wahlberg look where it just looks like a dog with mange. So I usually just keep the side short. And there's, numerous amounts of times I just rock the mustache, man. There's nothing wrong with it. Mustaches have made a serious comeback. So
your sea lion whiskers.
Yeah. Yeah, I look like a walrus when it gets really
The
long.
key is you just got to own it, right? You just got to.
Pretty much.
Like, you don't like it? Fuck you. This is what I'm doing. This is me.
That's what it is, man.
This is the new look.
Yeah, and then honestly, for like the company that I work for, it's like beards are, I don't want to say they're frowned upon, but it's not as common. And like even our president will be like, nah, I'm not liking the look. And I have, since I've been with the company, I have pushed the boundaries with my long hair and beards and mustaches. And finally, they're opening up to the idea that facial hair is not like some weird taboo, devil stuff.
I mean, that's how just being on Instagram for so long. And I remember, like, before I even followed you guys, I remember just seeing a guy with a really scruffy beard and long hair. And I'm always like, man, this guy's a guy has a podcast. He has some crazy, luscious locks. I'm like, who is this guy?
Dude, I remember the same ones, too, because he would have the posts, and it was the detail and the sharpness on the posts made, like, all the waves and all the streaks, everything come out. I'm like, damn, this guy's got wild hair. Look at this.
That was like my terrible photo editing at the time. I'm hoping it's gotten much better because back then I was just like, let's just take everything, every power of this app and turn everything to 100.
It kind of works for you guys because I've noticed that. Like, so like the first question we want to ask is like, what is the Hot Ticket podcast? So I've noticed like your logos are super smooth and it looks like you just raise it all the way up and it works for you guys because usually when I try to do it, it looks like ass. So I don't know.
That's this guy. So he is like our graphic guru. So like all the stuff that you would see in terms of like not editing on photos necessarily, but like the posters that are produced either for YouTube or to promote the podcast for Instagram. That's all Chris. He does all that stuff. So he's like I would literally say like a graphic genius when it comes to that. So the luxury is that, being brothers, we have, I've got my set of skills, which is not artistic in any way, shape, or form. And his is very much artistic. So the blend of two worlds together usually make for a good outcome.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
I know.
That actually answers a question that I did have. Because when I first looked at it, I said, are these guys brothers? Because they look like fucking twins. Like, these guys are spitting images. They have to be brothers. So that was one of the questions that we were going to ask. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, so obviously, yeah, we are brothers. And that was like the idea of the podcast. And I think the reason it works so well is because there's already inherent chemistry that we have in terms of like banter and back and forth and conversation because we know each other so well.
Yeah.
I'd say probably not dissimilar to you guys. I'm sure you've known each other for a while. So like even when I watch your clips and I watch your YouTube stuff, there's a natural chemistry that exists, which makes it very much appealing to the audience. And that's kind of how we think we are. It's just one of those things that meshes really well together.
Definitely. I mean, that was one thing.
It used to be a lot worse though. Like when we were younger, holy shit.
Yeah, we used to try to kill each other, like literally try to kill each other.
Like there's a story that involved him buying silly string. He's spraying us. I steal it. He throws my bike into a pond, breaks my dyno bike. I take his bike, throw it into the pond, try to break his bike. He starts fighting me. I start beating him up. He runs in the house. He locks the door on me. I kick in the door and like bust down the door, break all the padlocks on it. He's got a butcher knife. He's going to stab me. I'm like, what are you going to do? Stab me, motherfucker? So then he drops the knife and then he tries to throw
a chair at him.
Aluminum chair at me. All the while, our mom's boyfriend is naked upstairs, like just getting out of the shower. So he runs downstairs, dripping wet, soaking, trying to break us up. I ran away for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours.
You made that sound like something that you could now search for on Pornhub.
Yeah,
that sounded like it was part of a movie. Like that sounds like a scene from a movie. Like you sure
that was very vivid.
That movie? that was. I literally don't have to ask any questions about it because I know exactly every detail. Like I could perfectly see that picture. I mean, aside from your mom's boyfriend is naked, but I can see everything else.
I mean, that couldn't sound any more of a brotherly-like story. I mean, I got 2 younger brothers, and we got stories for days like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the dynamic changes, obviously, right? As you get older and you mature, and it's like now we see each other. Actually, just given the coronavirus, we see each other all the time. And so that dynamic's different for you guys because you're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
New York, New Jersey.
So
Yeah.
I'm in Long Island and he's in Westchester.
Oh shit, you're in Long Island?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my company's main offices is there. It's like our headquarters. It's like the small headquarters to our headquarters. Nice.
What town is it in?
Couldn't tell you because they just moved like 2 months ago, and I don't even know. I could look it up. I'll let you know later. But they've been on Long Island for a long time. It used to be like a mile away from the airport. Islip, that's the airport, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh, I know where Islip is. Yeah, that's the smaller airport. That's the Eastern Airport.
Yeah.
Gotcha. They were like, I think they're pretty close to there.
And I live
That's interesting.
right by the Islip Airport. So we're both from Long Island. We both born and raised, but I recently just moved up to Westchester County, which is about 15 miles north of like the city of like Manhattan. So I'm like right outside the city, but it's not city-like. It's more, I guess, rural, if you will. But it's
I think I would like that.
I like that.
Yeah, it still has its city. It still has its city. Like they say, this is where New York City sleeps. Like everyone commute. Like this is a commuter town, so everyone comes from Westchester and they commute into the city. And it's nice. It's good little neighborhoods. You can walk everywhere, which I'm not used to because growing up in a neighborhood on Long Island, I just lived around houses.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So what is lockdown like for you guys right now? I mean, obviously you're literally locked down because you're usually together, right? You're usually in the same room, so you're not in the same room anymore. So what's that like? What's it been like for you? I'm curious because I only know I know the girls from the TLE podcast, and of course because New Jersey, they're like quarantined and can't do anything. So like, what's it like for you? Like if you step onto the road, is like a cop coming with a billy club and smacking you?
There's no martial.
No. I mean, out here in Long Island, it's not. People are still. You can go out and still go to grocery stores, but all the restaurants are shut down. Everything to do is shut down.
Yeah.
We're basically just every day is become the same thing. You just wake up, I go down, I go to the dining room table, I get on my computer, I work, and then it becomes go for a run, exercise, crack open a beer, and start drinking. And it just rinse and repeat. There's really nothing else except for the occasional go to the grocery store. And when you do that, it's everybody's wearing gloves, everybody's wearing masks.
Yep.
Yeah, the thing
and
is,
they think that wearing the gloves and the mask means they don't have to stay away from you, but they don't. They're like right up on you, and I go, dude, just because you have a mask doesn't mean you need to be in my personal space. Yeah, really.
It's like, no, you're not.
It's the fact that you can still go out and do, like, you don't feel confined to your house. It's just more of that you can't do anything. Like, you can't, like, you can just go for a walk or a run. And if the only thing you can really go to is the grocery store or like a CVS. Like, there's just like the mundane, like Justin said, the mundane of doing the same stuff every single day. Like, it's not fun.
No, it's not. Do you anticipate, because I know like obviously like New York's numbers are like skyrocketing through the roof. Do you guys anticipate that it'll open back up sooner rather than later? I don't know what the trajectory looks like of New York yet in terms of like new cases
today, and it looked actually like the numbers were going down actually. So I was just talking with my buddies, and like the percentage of the hospitalizations are kind of somewhat down. Like the triple digit deaths are going down. So hopefully it's a good sign of not staying here forever.
Yeah, I think they'll open up, but by summer businesses and everything will be open, but until it gets back to normal capacity where people feel comfortable going out and actually participating and going, like, for instance, the restaurant might be open and have normal hours of operation, but I don't see it being jam-packed with people on a Friday night.
Right.
The operation might be there, but the people actually going out might not.
The pizza spots on Friday are just, they're, for a pizza delivery, it takes about an hour. Like, I called last week and you hear the girl answering the phone. She's like, "Hello, hold on. Hi, I can help you. Hold on 1 second. Hi, Rogers Pizza, hold on." And I'm like, she's like so frantic. And I'm like, God, you guys, thank you for the food, but you guys have a harder job than just delivering pizzas.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, the whole thing is wild. Not that I want to talk too much about it. I was just more curious about the whole New York aspect of it because of the dense population. It's like, how do you get around that?
Yeah. It's a ghost town in New York City, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But
that would be a wild scene.
Oh,
yeah, they have pictures of it.
I'm sure you Google New York City coronavirus. You'll see, Midtown Manhattan or Times Square, just ghost. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's wild.
Like
and you just don't see anybody anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, pretty much. So we wanted to ask you guys. So for everybody that obviously doesn't know, Hot Ticket Podcast, Big Cigar Podcast, Fellow Cigar Podcast, as if they couldn't get the gist of it already. But we wanted to ask you guys, when did you first start smoking cigars? Like, did you guys both start at the same time, being brothers? Did one person start, bring the other one in? How did that work?
And then the two-parter is, then how did you think of doing a podcast? That's my
I mean, this is
great question.
Great question.
So we didn't start smoking at the same time. I started smoking. I'm 32 now. I started smoking when I was 19. First cigar that I smoked was a CAO America, which dumb, right? You don't know what you don't know. But so I started smoking with a buddy of mine, got me into it, and I immediately fell in love. It wasn't like when some people smoke cigars for the first time, they get really turned off and they may reacclimate themselves to them long term. But for the most part, a lot of people smoke and go, this isn't for me, right? It's pungent, it's nasty, it makes my hair smell, makes my teeth grimy, the whole thing. I wake up and it's in my mouth. Like, I hear that story all the time. For me, it was like a very pleasurable experience, and I couldn't wait to smoke my second one. So I've been smoking very consistently since 19. Chris, you started smoking maybe
I'm 4
or 5 years ago.
I'm a bit of a virgin, really. I'm 34 now, and I started when I was 30. Mine was more of the taboo nature of it, is why I never got into it. Like, I've seen Corey smoke for so long, and I'm like, nah, it's not for me. It's not for me. Nah, I don't want to do it. And then we were having a guys' night at my dad's house. All of our friends, there's a lot of drinking and like a fire. And everybody wanted to hang out by the campfire. And like, they were smoking CAO Americas.
No, that's definitely not what I was
doing. CAO Americas, 10 years later, still smoking them. But they were smoking cigars, and I just was kind of curious. I was like drinking, like most of my reservations were kind of removed. And I was like, what do you got? And they're like, well, we got this like mint Java by Drew Estate. Ooh. And I'm like, fine, I'll smoke it. I like mint. So I smoked that, and I was like, that's pretty good. I was like, what else you got? Then they handed me a CAO America. They were still drinking. They leave. I was like, can I have whatever's left in your like little travel humidor? And I continued to smoke 4 cigars my first night on the front porch of my dad's house. And it was mostly mint Javas. But that's how I got into it. And then it was more of like, it became like a hobby, just like a different Corey, but just way later in life. So then I went like deep into it, like smoking every day, multiple cigars a day, from the shittiest of the shit, like all the way down here, to like the greatest of the greats. Like, oh, that's a $40 cigar, no problem. I'm gonna smoke it and enjoy it. And that's kind of like, I went full bore into it really quickly.
Yeah, he ramped up real fast, where I was kind of a slow and steady for a long period of time. But the podcast was created, it was weird because I started getting into podcasts probably at a time in which they weren't insanely popular. I would say probably roughly 5 or 6 years ago. And Joe Rogan, of course, being like the biggest one at the time. And I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan anyway. I started listening to his podcast. I was listening to Marin's podcast. And, for me, it was weird that it was like someone like Joe Rogan, who just had a thought, could just start talking. And then boom, he creates this massively successful podcast, which again was kind of this hidden gem medium at the time, which no one really, I don't say no one knew about it, but didn't understand the power of it yet. So I started kind of throwing around some ideas, and I was talking to Chris, and a buddy of ours joined us kind of at the inception of it. And we really started talking. I was like, now I feel like I have a lot to say, and I would love to have an outlet to speak freely. That was one of the things I didn't like about radio, is that was like way overproduced, and podcasts were accessible to everybody. I was like, I like to cuss and say really stupid shit, and I've got a lot of thoughts I want to put down. But I knew I didn't want it to be something that was unintentional. And really, we started talking about the hobbyist piece of what we do, and that being cigars. And really at the time, there wasn't a lot of cigar podcasts out. There was guys that were like throwing up an episode or two or whatever here and there, but it wasn't anything super meaningful. And the reality is a lot of bland conversation at the time, which I was like, ugh. I mean, it's almost impossible to listen to. Honestly, one of the things I admire a lot about you guys, I love watching the clips, is because you're freaking hilarious. Like, that's the kind of stuff I love listening to and watching. Good banter, good dialogue. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's captivating. And so we wanted to build something captivating around what cigars are. And so literally 3 years ago to like the day, like today, I think may be our 3rd year anniversary of starting this.
Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Cheers to 3 years.
Oh, I didn't even, whoa.
Well,
We got the conversation. I just don't want to stop. But I got Bulleit Bourbon.
Hell yeah, man. You know what's weird is the fact that I don't have bourbon sitting with me right now is very odd. And it's only because I forgot to bring it out here. But during intermission, I'm going to go grab it because I'm a huge bourbon fan. I love
Corey's leaving out a huge detail of this whole hot ticket backstory too.
Well, please inform us.
Yeah, see, he had a lot of pent up energy too.
Probably from you throwing his bike in the pond. you trying to kick the door down and beating him up.
I'm definitely scarred from childhood for sure.
Like, not many people at this stage of where we're at probably know this, unless you were like a listener way back. But me and him and our buddy were actually in the midst of starting and opening up our own cigar lounge.
Nice.
And we were going to open one up in Ohio. It was a very underserved market for where we were at. There was a lot of income in the area, a lot of traffic. And there wasn't any lounges at all. So we were cobbling together money, all of our resources, applying our skills, and we were like this close to signing a 3 to 5 year lease for a place. But then we were just like, we realized we felt like we were settling in a way. Like, the location was cool, but it wasn't like what we wanted.
Sure.
And like, in Ohio, for anybody who doesn't know this, you can't sell alcohol and cigars in the same establishment. It's stupid.
Really?
So it's either alcohol or tobacco, and that was it. And we're like, that also feels like settling. So, and like, I don't know, long story short, we just like, well, it would be really nice to open one up, but I feel like we're settling. So let's just hold off. And so, that was like an opportunity for Corey's like, well, I don't want to lose momentum doing what we want to do and making it cigar related. So he started up the podcast, and we all were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And really, some of the underlining strategies of the podcast have always been to not only build more awareness about what we do in the brand, but eventually, no promises, but we want to have our own cigar line. And we still want to open up our own lounge. So this is kind of like a jumping off point to that.
Yeah, it was weird because at the time, and Chris was being, I think, humble about the whole thing. So when we were close to signing the lease, I was actually traveling for business. And after I got off my flight, I got a call from, and I'm going to say her name, Annie, you bitch.
Call her out.
Long titty, no nipple having ass bitch.
She...
Damn you.
And she called me, and we were getting ready to sign a lease agreement with her, and she called me and says, hey, by the way, leaves me a voicemail, asshole.
You are a smelly pirate hooker.
And goes, I decided I don't want to lease the building out. I want to sell it outright. She actually owned the building. And I wasn't interested in buying a building. Like, I'm not purchasing a $300,000 building. The lease option with deferred payments for a few months was what we agreed on initially. And then she basically reneges and says, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to sell the building. And it was weird because I had that conversation with Chris, and I said, I understand like starting the business is challenging, but there was all these signs and it was right at the time where they were putting forward new FDA regulations. So there was all these signs that were telling us like, don't do this right now. This is not a good opportunity to go down this path. And so that's when we kind of decided to shift gears a little bit and then work our way into the podcast community. Because this to me is like, not only from an exposure perspective, but just think about how many people you guys have got to meet over a period of time in the cigar industry.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. the kind of exposure not only that you get from a collective audience, but also from these people who have been around the cigar industry for such a long time, brand owners, which you guys do interviews like we do. That's to us very meaningful and it's very important. So we wanted to build on that strategy as opposed to like, hey, let's open up a shop, roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I like how you're not even killing one dream. You're just kind of putting that one on pause,
right?
Building this one, and then you can come back to it. And then at the point that you do come back to it, you'll have established a network of people that listen to you. And you could say on your platform, announce that you're opening up this lounge, and then people are going to want to come to that lounge to smoke with the people that they've been listening to for the past 5 years.
100%.
Right. So it's kind of like just switching things around. That's smart.
What's even crazier about it is if we just started off, let's say we wanted to make our own cigar brand like 3 or 4 years ago when we were like, or 5 years ago at this point, wanting to make our own cigar, we would just have to make just random cold calls to factories and farms or find, tobacco to broker from or find a broker to get tobacco from. And like, we would have probably had to create like a $10 piece of shit cigar, getting just whatever we could get our hands on. But just doing the podcast, we have access to a whole bunch of farms direct to the owners and the blenders. And like, so when the time's right and we find the company or the farm or manufacturer to partner with, like, we'll be able to actually make the cigar we wanted to make in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of strange that just over like a period of 3 years, how many people have approached us and said, we'd love to make a cigar for you. It's weird. It happens all the time. And we've declined doing it simply for the fact that it's like, we aren't in a place where we're prepared. I mean, both him and I it's just insanely busy all the time, but you're right. There's a means to what we're doing that's going to kind of lead us to where we want to go. And long-term, there's going to be that point, which we'll both recognize, I'm sure. And we'll say, okay, now's the time.
Well, let's look at each other like,
now's the time.
Yeah, this is it.
I mean, kudos.
Yeah, you'll know. It's almost like they say, like when they always ask the question, like, how do you know when to propose or when you're going to get married? You know, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's going to be the same thing. The opportunity is going to come, and you're just going to say, "Yep, this is it."
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
that's how kind of like Justin and I, we tried starting up a couple of different things before we thought of this podcast. We want to do like 2 years ago, we were thinking of like a subscription business. We're like, oh, no one does this. This would be sick. And then it more and more popular on Instagram. I'm like, there's like so many of these. Good thing we didn't do these things. And then we thought about like doing a magazine. And we're like, we take all these pictures. We talk about all these cigars. We can put them on a cigar lounge. And we're like, 21st century. Like no one reads the magazine anymore. And then, like you said, Corey, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, a lot of comedian podcasts. And my brother got me into it, and I would watch him on YouTube for hours. Like we were just talking about it before, Justin and I. Like I would sit and watch Joe Rogan on YouTube for like 3 hours. I'm like, wow, yeah. Or driving, and I'm like, listen, we have like these platforms, we have a pretty decent following. Like we sit in the cigar lounge, we bullshit, we talk about everything underneath the sun, we meet cool people, all walks of life. I'm like, why don't we just do the same thing and just bring it to like a global internet audience? And here it is.
Right. Which is super smart. And I have a question for you because you say you listen to comedian podcasts. By the way, him and I do the same thing. We were sitting out here, 2 days ago, and we're literally just watching podcasts on YouTube. So tell me, what are your top favorite comedian podcasts? Because I feel like there's going to be some alignment here.
I mean, I listen to Your Mom's House with Tom Segura.
Done. It's my favorite.
I mean, I like I forgot the name of his podcast, but Joey Coco Diaz is another funny guy.
Oh, yeah, Diaz is great.
The Church of What's Happening
Church
Now.
of What's Happening,
yeah. And The King and the Sting with Theo Vaughn and Brent Job. So,
that's my new favorite. Theo Vaughn is literally the funniest human being on earth.
He is the man. He's hilarious. And
I'm so glad you listen to those.
My brother turned me on to all of them, Joe Rogan, and like I'm in the car a lot. I travel a lot for work, so like you get sick listening to music all the time, like the same playlist, the same songs. And the fact that, like you said earlier, like you can just put out whatever you want on a podcast and just like it doesn't have to be number 1 episode or number 1,000. You can just find in between and just listen and just vibe out. So
do you listen to Dungeons and Dragons podcasts like me?
The board game?
Yeah, well, role playing.
No, I mean I might
storytelling.
listen to the Doom podcast from the computer.
I feel like I'm the only one.
Yeah,
in the cigar industry, though.
Yeah, you're definitely the only one.
Yeah.
Fucking nerd.
So I have a
Taylor.
question then. So here's a question for you. So if you listen
Magic
to
the
Dungeons
Gathering?
and Dragons, do you to branch away from podcasts going to television? Do you watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's like I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but they talk about it all the time on Stranger Things.
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming that there's like names that are dropped in there that like the Demogorgon or something. Is that like a Dungeons and Dragons thing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Demogorgon some can be like a challenge rating of 25 to 30, sometimes higher. It's a very, very hard monster to beat. Yeah, without getting too nerdy, yeah, that's in there.
I used to play Magic the Gathering. I mean, that's what.
Same, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Dragons reminds me of, like Magic the Gathering, the card game. So when you said that, that's what thought of me. Like
You were one nerdy friend away from playing Dungeons and Dragons, I'm sure. If you were playing Magic, you were just a slight bit away from playing Dungeons and Dragons.
kids down the block from me were really nerdy kids, and we used to play Pokemon first, and then it was Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
So
Hey,
Chris,
there ain't nothing wrong with being a nerd. All right.
No.
I was
Definitely
a
not.
nerd. I was in all the classes. I was in band. I was in marching band. All right.
I wish I was.
I was a nerd.
wish I was.
yeah, there's
Ain't
nothing.
nothing wrong with being a nerd, man.
No, I think in some semblance we're all kind of closet nerds in our own way. You know, depend because there's people who love tech, right? And then there's people who love games, and there's people who love, a bunch of weird shit that is in a sense nerdy.
Yeah.
Nerds play the long-term game, man. They don't care about the early game. They play the long-term game.
Yes.
That's true.
And
Yes.
I mean, what defines the word nerd? It means just you know a lot about a subject, right? So like you said, everybody's nerdy in their own right, in their own way. That whether it be technology, whether it be science, whether it be movies and whatever. It's
women.
Yeah, there's a distinct difference between nerdy and dorky. Like Bill Gates was nerdy and dorky, but you're right. He's the kind of guy that played the long-term game. If you think about it now, the guy's worth billions of dollars, and he's probably looking at everybody else secretly who always never gave him a chance. Every girl never gave him a chance. Every guy that didn't want to be friends with him, and now look at the guy.
Yeah.
Nerds run the world, man.
Sexy. I mean, you see Jeff Bezos walking around, you're like, damn, he's a hot piece of
Yeah, but isn't he on all the HGH? That guy, he turned in. If you ever look at the picture of when he first started Amazon, there's that shitty crippled banner up on the corner of his desk, and he's in some rundown. I don't even know if he's in a garage or some shit. And now the guy is jacked to shit. It's like, how did you do that? I guess if you're worth $400-something billion, you've got access to pretty much everything. But
yeah, it's probably a lot easier when you can just pay somebody to shove a meal in front of your face at a certain time of day and say, hey, this is what you're eating right now. Hey, this is what you're eating right now. Hey, 3 hours later, eat this. You don't have to worry about it.
I love that.
What's weird about the whole Jeff Bezos thing is he's worth so much money that when he got a divorce with his wife, he instantly made her the richest woman on earth.
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
He could have
and he probably didn't even bat an eye about losing that amount of money.
No.
He was probably like, all right, whatever, sign it, done. I'm still the richest man on the planet.
I gotta admit something to you guys. I just dropped Ash.
Did you? Yeah, your rookie move.
Yes. Drop it.
Hashtag
rookie move.
You guys would have never noticed, but I'm honest Abe over here.
So hey, what's funny about that? And I wanted to talk to you guys about that. It's actually a pretty good ad.
Love it. Put it up. Where we gonna put it? We got my number right here. We're gonna put his number over there. Add it to the board.
Yeah, you guys should tally that up. And here's, I'll be honest. So when you guys first started doing the hashtag rookie move, it was cracking me up I wanted to have this conversation with you intentionally because as long as I've been smoking, I literally do it every single day, all day. Without fail. I've dropped that shit in my own mouth. My keyboard is completely covered with ash. My clothes are covered with there's probably ash in my butt crack right now. And it's probably you can't even fathom how it gets there, but that's how much I do that.
I say
every day.
The rest of us. It happens to everyone's like, no, that will never happen. I'm like, dude, you can be a cigar aficionado, you can be Michael Jordan, and you can be a guy who's smoking his cigar for his first time. doesn't matter where you are. It's gonna happen eventually.
Yep.
You know what? I think there's something to people who do that more often than not, and here's why. Especially if you're with a group of people. If your intentionality is around focusing on a conversation and having meaningful conversation with a group of people, you're not constantly looking at your cigar. I think it happens more often than not when you're in the moment actually having meaningful conversation with someone and connecting with someone.
Like
it's the weirdos who are just like staring at it the whole time like, oh, what's it going to do?
I mean,
you're
I'm
weird.
with you 100%.
And I was just like
that.
this. I was like, oh,
It totally diffuses like real intimate, real deep conversations too. It's like, that's why like socialism will never, God damn it.
No, I totally agree with what you say because we actually did. I don't know if you saw the episode. We did a longest ash competition on air.
Well, just
And
before you get into it, we're running like 2 minutes. So let's take a intermission type deal. And we'll get back.
do it. You said you were going to go and get bourbon, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go grab some bourbon.
Yes. So before we do that, before I go on to my storytelling like I love to do, we are going to cheers. I hope you got your bourbon.
Beautiful.
We're going to cheers to the Hot Ticket Podcast joining us. Appreciate you guys.
Cheers to you fellows. Ting, ting.
Cha-ching. Thanks, guys.
Give a shout out to New Riff. So New Riff Bourbon, if you haven't had it, it's actually a place that's like 40 minutes away from me. And this single barrel New Riff is amazing. They've only been in business for like 3 years, and somehow they've managed to make like one of the best bourbons I've ever had, which is crazy.
Love it.
This stuff is
New Riff. Okay, I'm gonna have to try that. I'm drinking Blanton's.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, it's just Blanton's that I have in my decanter here. But the story that I wanted to tell you guys was we were talking about not paying attention to the ash and getting lost in the conversation, which is why you ashing yourself. And we actually did an episode of what we tried to do a longest ash competition. And I told Eric this, and I've told people this all the time, that I feel like focusing on trying to keep the ash and grow it as long as possible takes away my focus from everything else. Because he was talking to me and telling me stories, and I felt like I wasn't really paying attention to him. I was more focused on not shaking my hand to drop the ash on the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, no, somebody asks, do you ever do longest ash? You go, yeah, I've done it. Every once in a while I'll look at the cigar. If it's holding well, maybe I'll try it by myself. But I'm like, I don't enjoy the cigar so much because I'm smoking it like this.
Yeah.
I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm like, just ash it and enjoy the cigar.
I mean,
Have you guys seen any cheaters yet where they'll like shove a paper clip down the middle of it?
Oh, come on.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen someone put like a spoke through it. I think I feel like I have, but not per se a paper clip. But I have seen some.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know if I've ever like caught. It's kind of hard to catch somebody on when they post a picture because you can't really see it. But
I mean, the whole rookie move thing, I was just like bullshit. Like I obviously had no intention of like making it a thing, and I always be like, hashtag your mother's ass, or hashtag hashtag that. And every once like at parties when people would like drop like a beer or something, we'd be like asshole. So when we would drop like an ash, I'm like, oh man, that's such a rookie move. And then I don't know, it kind of took it's a life of its own, and then here it is today. Hashtag rookie move.
I know. I love all the people that tag it. I think that's incredible. It's so funny. It's great too because they're hilarious pictures. That's the best part. Is like there's some that are so egregious. Like, it's like, wait a second, you were smoking like a 5.5 by 44. How do you have like a bucket worth of ash all over you?
Crazy.
The best one to this day is when Eric dropped the Cuban in the coffee.
Shout out to Justin, the Dapper Cigar, for hooking your boy up. Because this is your boy's heard later. Good looks. My man. We out here.
Love
No! It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Oh, that's the best one to this day.
That was I could not. I mean, it was actually a good day because it actually smoked really well. But the fact that that happened, I was just like, God, this is the story of my life, dropping shit in a coffee cup like this on video. I'm like, damn it. But
it was like witnessing a unicorn. Like we couldn't, like we were frozen. It's like you witnessed like a car accident or something. We were just frozen looking at it. And then it clicked like, oh shit, I got to take it. You got to take it out of the coffee.
That's amazing.
Coffee infused Cuban.
So did you guys on that episode? Was it the Viva La Vida that you guys were doing? Was that the cigar that you guys did the long ash with?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because that's the one I did the same thing. I used that cigar when I was just doing the whole holding it by the ash thing. Like that was my go-to because it's so. I mean that cigar is like perfect for that.
I did like when I first started smoking cigars. You know, Gurkha is notorious for their marketing, so I thought Gurkhas were good cigars when I first started. And I had this cheap Gurkha called the Park Avenue 45. It's a Connecticut cigar. You get it for like $6 a stick or something. And I have a picture way down on my Instagram. The whole cigar is ash. And I just thought that was a normal thing. And then more and more when like hearing about stories about Gurkha and just like ashes and construction, I'm like, how the hell did I get that cigar to do that? Because I mean, it was either I think it was a torpedo, and I had like the whole thing going. I'm like, out of 40, it was wild, but I mean, whatever, it works.
What I find super impressive is when I see people that have a Lancero with a lot of ash on it. Like if you have a Lancero that's got anything more than a couple of inches, I don't know how that sucker's holding on.
So let me ask you guys this. So obviously we're both in podcasts. I want to ask you guys, if you had like one golden nugget, one piece of advice for someone who's starting out a podcast, what would you tell them?
Ooh.
Don't do it.
Cut it. Don't even think about it.
I would say, and so it was funny because I paused when I said that. But my biggest piece of advice is like, don't do it unless you're really serious about doing it. Unless you're willing to commit to it, don't do it. Because one thing I've noticed is like, because I've had a lot of people approach me, it's like, how do I start a podcast? How do I do this? And I can see intentionality. Like I understand, like, I think some people think it's just like because other people have derived success from podcasting. And our whole thing was like, we never started to do it. We never did it because of viewership or anything like that. Like, we would do this podcast. It was for 5 people or if it was for 5,000 people. It's just a means to broadcast your message and have a conversation with a collective audience. And so many people got into podcasting, and I would ask people who approach me like, well, what do I need to do? And blah, blah, blah. And I would say, well, what do you want to talk about? And then they wouldn't have a plan. And I would say, well, what's your intention around it? And they wouldn't have any thoughtful intention. And I was like, this isn't for you. Like, I would challenge to say, like, don't do this if you aren't going to take it seriously. Don't do it if you don't have anything meaningful to broadcast out to the collective masses, because you're doomed to fail at that point. So statistically, most podcasts never make it past 13 episodes. So it's like, if you don't have a plan and you don't have intentionality around it, you should just not do it. You're wasting your time wasting a lot of effort.
Unless you like to listen to yourself. Which I do.
Yeah, Chris listens to each podcast.
I only listen to my jokes.
Hey, man, you got to get better somehow.
Everybody loves the sound of your own voice, right?
Yeah. The other thing is, I think, just persistence. Like, it's like one of those games that, like, if you're going to do podcasts, you got to be patient and persistent and consistent. Like, not trying to rhyme with that, but, like, the reality is when we started it, I was like, I'd be happy if we get like 100 listeners like a month. Right. And then it got way beyond that. But the point is like, you have to create a certain amount of consistency and expectation for what you're doing. And you need to understand that if you're going to be big, if that is your goal, is to reach as much listeners as possible, then you have to not only promote yourself, which he does really well, and you need to understand that it's going to take you a few years probably. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, when we got into the cigar industry with this podcast, I was like, it's an awesome community, but it's not that big. Like, the chances of someone being interested in a podcast who's also interested in cigars is pretty limited when you think about it compared to other types of media and podcasts, whether it's general news, whether it's comedy specifically, or it's some type of niche thing where it's like documentary based narrative or whatever the case may be. But the cigar industry is small, and we're a bunch of old guys, generally speaking, in this industry. Like you still got a lot of baby boomers in this industry. They're like, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
So like there was no expectation that we were going to have any listeners whatsoever. But if you want to grow in this industry, you just got to keep producing content, and you're going to have to be in it for the long haul.
I agree. I mean, I think I have the same thinking process, and, Justin and I are, we're pretty motivated, and we wanted, and I knew Justin kind of was making, he's big into fitness, and he started like a workout, fitness thing at one point. And then that's what drew me to do on a podcast. Cause I'm like, listen, he knows stuff about audio, stuff about video. I like to think I know a lot about it, but he has more experience than I do. And I think we could, transfer ideas. And that's ultimately, how we do it. We both edit the videos. We both do the audio. Like we take like alternating weeks of who's editing what. And I just learned from, I don't know if you guys like talking to podcasts like Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V.
Yeah, Gary V.
He started out just doing like a YouTube channel just for wine. And like obviously he had his background success, but no one really knew what he was. And he blew up by doing wines and doing this and doing that. And his message is always just keep doing it, just keep doing it, and just keep doing it. Who cares how many likes you get? Who cares how many views you get? If you like what you do, and if you are very passionate about it, and you're consistent with it, and you obviously put in the effort, eventually someone's going to come where you feel like you get like some kind of self-reward.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I like what you were saying before about asking somebody, well, why do you want to do this? Like, what's the reason that you want to do it? Don't say, oh, I want, 100,000 followers. I want to make a lot of money.
I want to be TikTok.
Like that's the result that you want. But why do you want to do this? And it reminds me of a book that I read called Start With Why by a gentleman, by somebody named Simon Sinek. And in that, he talks about, it's like a circle, and there's 3 layers to the circle, and everything starts with the inner circle. Because everybody wants to start with outside in. They think about, oh, I want to get rich. I want millions of dollars. And then they have to figure out, okay, what do I have to do to get $1 million? It's like, no, don't think that way. Start about why do you want to get $1 million? Like, why do you want to do what you want to do? Is it because you want to be able to support your family, because you want your children's children to have, generations of wealth? Or why do you want to start your podcast? Is it because you have something to say and you want to bring a community together? That's the reason why you should start the podcast, and that'll keep you going. The why is what keeps you going. It's not just, the what could be anything. It could be a podcast, it could be a YouTube, it could be whatever it is. But the why is what really is going to wake you up every single day, keep you motivated to do what you got to do.
Yep. And what's crazy is, so like the golden circle, the why, how, what, is something that I apply to all of my work. So I'm like, in my day-to-day, I'm a product designer and product strategy guy. And like, that is the crux of all work I do with any of my clients is the golden circle. And like, dude, that. And what's funny is like, people are really, there's like some people I've noticed personality wise that are really good at the what's, like they're really technical, but never have like a really good how or why. And like, what's really cool is team dynamics play a huge role in that golden circle as well, by like finding team members that also maybe are better at the whys and the hows than you are. Like, dude, it's like, that is like my Bible practically for everything I do work related.
Yeah. And how that translates to podcasting too. So not dissimilar. I think there's a lot of similarities between what you guys do and what we do. Obviously, number of people, we're obviously very strikingly handsome. So you have and Eric already said, like, Justin, you're the kind of more the audio technical guy. That's me too. Like all the production, all that stuff. There's a lot of synergy between the things that we bring forward that help kind of create this thing that we can broadcast out. I think you need an element of that too. And going back to the original question, and when you guys asked like why we started this, how we started it, Chris and I understood really early on from a podcast perspective, it wasn't the intentionality around why we started doing it, but we certainly saw a means and an avenue to broadcast a message to a different audience. And as he said, and we've already agreed, podcasting is not for, I would say, the older generation baby boomer guys. There's some that listen to podcasts, but for all intents and purposes, these are guys who are still reading Cigar Aficionado. No bash against Cigar Aficionado at all, but they're guys who like to read publications, right? They love to read magazines like Cigar Journal and all that. But as we all know, that collective giant generation of people that exists in the world today is not going to exist 20 years from now. Well, what exists 20 years from now? That's guys our age. That's guys who use things like podcast platforms to broadcast a message. This will become the most popular medium for getting information around cigar related stuff. And it helps usher in a new generation of cigar smokers. We identified that early on. Millennial generation and younger, guys who really guys and gals seek to have where they're more intentionally focused around leisure and social stuff as opposed to loyalty and demand on work.
Yeah.
This is the most thing you could possibly do. This is something that I think is going to spark interest in a lot of people going forward as time goes on. And this generation that really adheres to, it's all about the social aspect, and it's all about taking time for myself. And this is one of the best things you can do for that. So for him and I, it was like, we want to broadcast a message out there to usher in a new generation of cigar smokers, because the reality is kind of out with the old and in with the new. And, who better to do that than us and you guys?
And I looked at it from like, and another reason why I wanted to start a podcast is, just the social media aspect in general. Like you said, Cigar Aficionado used to be like, and it still is, but it's more looked at like the old school way. Like you have a website and you have a publication through a magazine. They put up videos every once in a while, but millennials and so on and so forth, they want to see people who are relatively around our age and people doing the same stuff. They don't want to see some sophisticated man who's been, got all the millions of dollars, who's in a suit and tie talking about cigars, because they can't, they won't always relate. And people like us, they're like, yeah, it's just a couple average Joes, a couple guys that, crack jokes here and there. And, cigar smoking maybe for me too as well, because there's also a stigma behind, cigar smoking. It's like, it's always about the class and always about being fancy, and there's rules to it. And in reality, there's not. I mean, first example, my girlfriend, when she bought me cigars for my birthday one time, she was like, I walked to the cigar lounge, and yeah, great girlfriend, exactly. And she's like, I walked in the cigar lounge and everyone was looking at me and I felt so like uncomfortable. And I'm like, don't listen to any of that. I'm like, that's just, they just see an attractive woman walking in the lounge, which they don't see often. And I hear people all the time, like younger people will message me personally, like, I don't know what to smoke. I don't know what to do. I don't know if this is for me. I'm like, if it feels right, it feels right. Just, just if you like it, you like it. I mean, cigars are very simple. You're supposed to enjoy them. If you like enjoying them, and that's what it's for. That's all it is.
That's it.
Yeah, like you're not gonna know what to smoke when you first start. Like when all of us first started, we had no idea about anything about the different countries, about the different sizes. So the best advice that we could give to anybody starting is just go in, pick up a cigar and smoke it.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it's, if you have a certain budget, right? Obviously, if you don't want to smoke a $50 Padron, then don't pay $50. If you pick up one that's $6, smoke it. If you don't like it, all right, don't smoke that one again. Pick something different up, and just trial and error. You're gonna, and like you said, like you mentioned with podcasting, consistent and precision. Just if you really want to try to get into it, keep smoking different things. You'll eventually find what you like.
I also think the amount of variety of cigars also intimidates people. It's like when I go to a restaurant and it's an Italian restaurant and they offer Korean food, Indian food, Chinese food. It's like, I'll just take a cheeseburger, please. And it's like, sometimes you just get overwhelmed with the amount of choices that you have. That's another, I think that plays another part in this.
Yeah, screw you, Cheesecake Factory, for like 1,000 fucking menu items.
Yes, they do. Sure. They have like it's like a novel reading their menu. It's like page. Like I just want like a piece of chicken, please. Thank you.
I remember going to the Cheesecake Factory one time, and it was like an hour and a half wait, and there was like a group of like 12 of us, so we waited a long time. And they give you a menu up front while you're waiting too, so you can figure out what you're going to get by the time you sit at the table. I sort of got an hour and a half later, and then an hour for the server to actually get to us to order. I still didn't know what I wanted. That's how overwhelming the menu is. And part of me is just like, just give me the New York style cheesecake. Let's call it a day. Like, it's good enough for me.
And it makes you think like how these chefs must have a photographic memory, because how do you remember how to make all this stuff? It's the same thing as a diner. And I love diners. Growing up in New York, diners are a thing, right?
Yeah.
You can get anything that you want, breakfast, lunch, dinner, at any time of the day. But these chefs, like, how do you remember the 300 items on your menu?
No, I know.
It's intense. But I mean, you guys are right in terms of like going back to the Cigar Aficionado publication. You know, I subscribed to Cigar Aficionado for a year, but it was free. So thank God that ended. But you know, when I go through and you talk about being able to relate to it, and I see advertisements for Rolex watches, right? And I see these high-end cars advertising, you know, Maseratis. That isn't relatable to the majority of the people who live in the United States. It quite simply isn't. And one of the things I think is unique about the cigar community, which I would say Cigar Aficionado doesn't do a good job of, is the relatable aspect of cigars. Because Chris and I have talked about this before. When you go into a cigar lounge, really bars and stars come off. Like your stripes come off. You're no better than anyone else. They're no better than you are. It doesn't matter social class. It doesn't make a difference. Like we've had this conversation, like we've met people in the cigar lounge who are millionaires. And then you've got the guy who literally just got off
The postal worker.
Who walks in and he's having a conversation with all of us. And everybody's talking to one another, and social class does not make a damn difference. And I think that is, I would say, a falsified, in some terms, it's like a falsified thought that some people have in terms of like going into a cigar lounge thinking that it's overwhelming because of the social class piece of it. But really, for all the cigar lounges I've been into, people are very warm and welcoming. And for the people who aren't, fuck those guys. Like, I just look at them and say, fuck them. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
No, 100% agree with you, because, I mean, we've talked about that many times on here, is that the one thing we love about the cigar, not one thing, but one of the things we love about the cigar community is how welcoming it is. And Eric travels a lot. I travel a lot for work, and I've been to all different lounges all over the country. And every single time I go in, it's just that. The environment is welcoming. You can be sitting next to somebody who, you know, to social standards might be poor versus somebody who's a millionaire, and it doesn't matter. Right. It's a luxury that everybody can enjoy. Everybody sits there. You have great conversations from all different walks of life.
Yeah.
There are no social statuses. You don't have to be a certain somebody to smoke a cigar.
No.
Nope. I bet, you know, more times over now when I've gone to a cigar, like if I've traveled or just by myself in general, even locally, if I sit down by myself and someone strikes up a conversation, or even I strike up a conversation, 9 times out of 10, I'll probably be talking to that person the remainder of, you know, whole cigar. And that's when that's the type of community you go to. You can go in a random place, never been there before. You can go to a different state and sit down and strike up a random conversation with a random person, not knowing any background on them, and feel like you have some kind of connection. And there's not many places, like, you know, you go to a club or a bar, you're not going to find too many people where you can just strike up a conversation and hang out with them, you know? So that's why I think, and that's another reason why we want to kind of broadcast this, because as you guys were saying, it's just, you can, all walks of life, there's some kind of message or some kind of relatability between everybody. It doesn't matter if you're poor or you're the richest person in the world. You're going to have some kind of relatability with the person. So that's another reason why.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I get shut down at bars a lot. I walk up to someone like, hey, is that a Manhattan? I like that. That's
the numbers game, man. The numbers game. Ask 10 people if that's a Manhattan, and I guess one person or 2 people will say, yeah, it is. Do you like it?
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing, too, is like going into a cigar lounge. One of the questions I always ask is, I am genuinely curious if I can't see for myself, if someone's smoking something, I'm like, hey, what are you smoking? Like, it looks interesting or has an aroma to it that's interesting. And that 9 times out of 10 always sparks a long-term conversation.
Yeah.
And you get to understand what people enjoy, what they like. It helps maybe curtail what you want to try as well. Like there's a knowledge base around it too. Like even for folks that I think I would consider novice in terms of cigar smoking, people who hang out at lounge, there's always some sort of knowledge they can impart just about the experiences that they've had, which is really cool. There's not a lot of things that you can do in a social environment that give you that. So it's like for me, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, I'm always learning. I'm literally learning every single day when it comes to cigars.
I just finished reading the Ultimate Cigar book. My girlfriend got it for me for a birthday or Christmas present, and there's just so much information that you don't know. So it's like when you find people that like they know everything about cigars, it's like, do you really know everything about cigars? It's like even people who've been in the industry for 50 years are like, I'm still learning every single day. So it's like, you gotta take everything with a grain of salt.
One of the things,
it's ever changing too, which is what I like. And I do like what you said about, you walk into a bar, for instance, and you ask somebody, hey, what are you drinking? Most of the time they're not really that doesn't spark a conversation. It's different how you go into a cigar lounge, like you said, you ask what they smoke, and it starts a conversation.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant, somebody could be eating something. Hey, what is that? They'll say, oh, it's, chicken parm. And you're not going to start a conversation like that. But with cigar lounges, it does for some reason.
You can't be like, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, I'm drinking a White Claw.
How's that chicken parm?
But I mean, we're getting like close to the end. We got like another 15 minutes or so. But one question. So you guys are, Justin, I want to ask. Are you guys born and raised from Dayton, Ohio? You guys are from Ohio?
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
So if you guys had, for someone who doesn't know where Dayton, Ohio is, or doesn't even know anything about U.S. in general, how would you describe Dayton, Ohio to somebody who doesn't know where it is?
Oh, well.
I would say deceptively unsafe.
Yeah. Now, here, Ohio, Corey, is considered the heart of the country. It's considered the lifeblood of this entire nation. But I will agree with you and say this. Dayton is notorious for having 1 out of 14 people will become the victims of a crime.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even know if that's statistically accurate,
It
but
is,
I'm definitely
Corey.
not going to argue it because there's probably some truth
It's
to that.
100% accurate.
I will say this. One thing that I love about Ohio is that if, let's just say, for example, the borderline of Ohio has, let's just say the whole border of Ohio is a fault line, and it separates itself from the rest of the United States. It's one of the only states that can sustain itself in terms of crop growth, in terms of producing goods and so on and so forth. So we've got that going for us. So if some weird apocalyptic shift happens and we're not all murdered by a fucking asteroid, we can at least sustain ourselves for a long period of time. So that's good. We got that going for us.
And we've got one hell of a SeaWorld up in Sandusky, Ohio, and a pretty good theme park in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So we got to ask you this now. So
yeah.
Ohio. So I know that now. I was kind of disappointed when they canceled the whole March Madness because Dayton, Ohio had a killer team, and I was excited to see how far they went.
Yep.
But being from Ohio, one, are you guys sports fans? And two, what are your teams from Ohio?
I am a huge sports fan. I would say Chris a lot less than I am. So in terms of teams in Ohio, though, so we'll start with the NFL. Although I'm in closer proximity to the Cincinnati Bengals, they are garbage people and their fans are garbage people. So I am a Cleveland Browns fan, like 100% in my heart, no matter.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, it's terrible.
It's like being a Jet fan. It's okay.
It's a large factor of disappointment every single year. It's funny because you get together with my friends. We get together for the draft. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a real good pick. We got a chance this year. And in the back of our heads, we're like, we'll probably go 500 if we're lucky. And that's literally every single year. And some years you luck out and go like 9-7. But, so that's my sports team. I'd say by default, Ohio State Buckeyes fan. I mean, obviously, if you live in Ohio, you're an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, and you hate Michigan. It's just the way it is. I was excited for Dayton. I was excited for UD this year as well because that one fucking kid who just dominates everybody. But I never realistically thought that Dayton was going to go past the Sweet 16. Personally, it's just like they choke. They just choke every single time, no matter how good the team is. But I think this year was a little bit different. I think they could have probably statistically gone a little bit further, but yeah, Ohio is massive for sports, in particular football. I mean, it's and actually the city that I live in has just cornbread, big ass dudes. It's Centerville, Ohio, so it's south of the city, but like AJ Hawk graduated from Centerville High School. And there's a lot of athletes that come out of it. I don't know if you know Nick Mangold. He was the center. Actually, wasn't he? Didn't he play for the Jets? Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite Jet, baby.
Yeah. So Nick Mangold literally lived like 10 minutes from where I live now. And his beast of a sister, who's like a power lifter, who also played for the high school football team. She's a monster. So there's a lot of it's huge for sports because there's really nothing else to do. Like Dayton, Ohio. Like a few years ago, I did like a volunteer effort for the city, and it was for like low income families. And we worked with the police force, and it was all about like preventative measures on crime because the police force was so emaciated that they had I forget what it was, like one police officer for, I forget what the population was, but it was like insane. Like it was like they were a tenth of what they should be to actually police the entire city. So crime rates are just skyrocketed, went through the roof. It's better now, but like at one time it was per capita, highest crime rate per capita in the entire country, like 5 years running. So it's not the best place, but it's getting better.
I will say, Corey, you're not giving me enough credit. I am a sports fan. I like football. You know, the sport where they like kick the ball through the those poles.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a fan of football. But I'm more of a highlights guy anymore when the older I get. But me and Corey have always been athletes growing up. Like we've played baseball, football, softball. We play hockey now. Like we're athletes. Him more so than me. Mainly just because, well, one, our hockey league has been totally shut down, which sucks.
Can't play hockey during Corona.
But
that's a no-no.
We play a beer league, and it's fun as shit. We get drunk and play hockey, and it is.
That's fun.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
Now
It's amazing.
do you guys feel betrayed by LeBron?
No. The first time, I would say the city definitely felt betrayed. The second time, it was more like of an ode, like, dude, thanks for your service.
Dude, when I was in high school, we went to Kettering Fairmont High School, and LeBron's team, because he's like around my age, and they played us, and he fucking obliterated.
It was insane.
Our high school basketball team.
Yeah, it was funny because the cover of the high school magazine, which I still have, highlighted. I played drums like during high school for like jazz band. So there was a highlighted picture of me playing the drums on the cover of which I also shared space with LeBron James, of him absolutely destroying our fucking high school. So that's interesting.
I mean, some people don't realize, and it kind of goes back to the point where you're saying that everybody, like a lot of the athletes from Ohio, they're just talented. They're just big guys. And some people don't realize that LeBron, not only was he like the greatest high school player in Ohio for basketball, but he was also like all-state 3 times, would have went to the NFL if he didn't choose basketball.
Yeah, he had his choice. Yeah, he
So
definitely.
he was just a freak, and but I remember watching high school at the angle. It's not even fair because I'm a basketball lover, and I love LeBron, and I appreciate what you said, that people, when he left, they're like, no, thank you for what you did to our economy and what you did to Cleveland. But he's just on a whole nother level. Like it's not even fair. It was like a man amongst boys playing in high school.
Yeah, he still is. I mean, the guy's he's gonna be 40 years old, and he's gonna get a chance to play with his son probably, which will be crazy to watch, and he'll still be amazing. Like,
he's in his 17th season, and he's still like
The most dominant
MVP.
player.
Like you could give him the MVP. You could have given him the MVP every single season.
Yep.
Every single season.
Yep. I feel like they just did, and they're like, we got to give someone else a chance. This is getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's why I want Corona to be over, because I want to see LeBron win his, another title with his third team. I mean, that would be.
Dude, that'd be crazy.
That'd be wild.
That is unreal. I remember being a little kid. I remember being in 6th grade, and he was still in high school, and I had this little cut. Like I cut him out in a newspaper, and I put him in my marble notebook, and not knowing really who he was. I just knew he was this phenomenal basketball player. And I was like, wow, this guy's good. Yeah. And then, like years later, I found this notebook with his his newspaper thing, and I was like, wow, this is like a fucking treasure. I can never lose this.
Can we all agree, though, when he was in high school, he still looked like a goddamn 30-year-old man?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
No doubt.
He just was less bold.
He was just less bold.
And it's weird because he acted like a 30-year-old man. Like if you watch some of the interviews, I mean, he obviously matured as he got old, but if you watch some of the interviews, he sounded like he was just already in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like he was humbled. He spoke like he was just used to it. Like, this is me.
It's very
I've been doing this forever.
For New Yorkers, like the New York Yankees, like Derek Jeter is obviously the guy, but he was never in the media. He was never in trouble. You never heard anything bad about him. And I feel like LeBron James is a very Derek Jeter-esque, because he's always, giving back to his community, giving kids scholarships, doing, admirable things. But you don't ever hear anything bad about him. And
he's a family man. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, think about all the times he spends with his family. Like, it's crazy. Like,
and he's been with the same girl since high school, right?
It's incredible. Yeah, he's an anomaly for sure in all aspects, as a human being and as an athlete.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting to the end of this. So, I mean, last question, and you can put all your stuff out there. What's the next big thing for the Hot Ticket podcast? Where can everyone find you? Facebook? Tell us all.
So we don't really Facebook. We're more Instagram. We kind of keep the one social media. But we're doing we had the first release of a cigar review on YouTube this week, which we call a segment. It's called Give Me One Hot Minute. So that'll release in a couple days. So that'd be like a new segment of what we do for YouTube. So you can find actually the video podcast on YouTube. And of course we're on, Stitcher, Apple Music now, Spotify, anywhere you find. But I always tell people, like, where can I find him? Just Google that shit, dude. Like, you'll find it. Like, it's everywhere. Like, you'll find it. But I'd say like the next big thing is we're going to do a really large site upgrade. So www.hotticketweekly.com. We're going to do a big upgrade to the site coming up, where we're hosting a lot of different stuff and kind of redesigning the platform. Those are really the big things. Other than that, just releasing our weekly episodes.
I'll come out and say it. I give no shits at this point. I'll promote it. The cigar community is an interesting animal. There's a lot of guys and there's a lot of women. And for the women, it's a lot of, let's say, slightly nude-oriented photography, maybe risque.
Eric, what's the term that you use?
Tits and sticks?
Tits and sticks.
Tits and sticks, and what do we call them? Skinfluencers?
Oh, skinfluencers. Yes.
Well, we've been beating this up a lot, I want to say, and I think what we're going to probably do is to release our own 12-month calendar of nothing but us with cigars dressed in provocative lingerie, and release our own calendar for purchase through Instagram and see how it does. Because the thing is I don't like these women, and so this is like the ultimate just poke at the hornet
sticking it to them.
I'm gonna need a copy of that calendar.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the first customer.
Yeah, you guys will get your free copy. Don't you worry.
I want to let it be known. This is who I support.
I need some new me time material.
You can store that one in the spank bank if you like. I approve.
And I know Justin wanted to ask you really quick. I know you noticed you guys been doing Boutique Week. What's a cigar boutique-wise that you can recommend for us to look out for?
Ooh.
Oh.
I'll tell you what, there's so many, and they come up in just the most random of times. But there's a cigar brand that I recently smoked that is very, very up and coming, very, very hard to get your hands on. But I adore the brand, and I adore the people that made them, because we got invited to Dominican Republic to actually see their farms. The manufacturer is called El Artista. There's a sub-brand that they're promoting and supporting that is called OM Cigars, and they have a number 2 cigar, and it's what the name, it's called like the series number 2, I think I wanted to call it, or I forget what it's called, but number 2, and it uses really, really unique Dominican tobacco that literally only El Artista releases. It's called the T13, and what I love about it, if you're like a spice heavy person, if you like bold, spicy cigars, this cigar is so unique that it like makes my mouth tingle, which I fucking love.
Yeah.
And I love just coming across these small companies that are like trying to do something big with something unique, because there's so many blends that use the same crops from the same farms, and it's like, yeah, that's great, but it's just a different label slapped on it. But there's something unique about when you find these little hidden gems. And OM Cigars with the number 2 blend is one of the ones recently that I'm just like, yes, that is a good fucking cigar.
Yeah, for sure.
Cigars, number 2. We'll have to keep a lookout for that. Justin will definitely be Googling that.
Oh yeah, because I like that, where it's almost like you bit into a hot wing and your lips kind of tingle after you have that hot sauce. I do like that.
Yes.
I'd have to mimic what Chris said. I'd go with the OM. The OM's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, this I think this concludes everything.
Hell yeah, man.
We usually like to send it off with a little shot that we have left. So Corey and Chris from the Hot Ticket Podcast.
Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, are we chugging this, or are we like just sipping on it still?
Hey, man, this is going right down the hatchet.
Okay.
Right down the gullet.
Right down the gullet.
I'll do it. Fuck it.
So we appreciate everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. Go check out the Hot Ticket Podcast. Go subscribe. Go follow them on Instagram. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button for us. Until next time, cheers.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate your time.
See you guys.